I'd like to introduce you to the man, the legend, the Earl of Essex, and P.G. Wodehouse. He's alive!
Thank you, Hutch, and
why?
good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Just a quick word, I think, for esteemed chairman who can't be here this evening if he's watching.
Yes.
Best wishes, because he's suffering with a few dental issues, and hopefully he'll be able to make it for the party on Saturday. Now, a lot of you will be familiar with this tale. It's a short story of Jeeves and the Yuletide spirit. So, as we're already eyes down from Full House. It's March 15th, 1939, a bitterly cold day as the forces of the Wehrmacht enter the Sudetenland, smashing
Hello, sorry.
Are they German? You had me going there for just a minute.
smashing the Munich Agreement of 1938 and annexing Czechoslovakia. Sorry, that's the wrong talk. We're not doing that. Jeeves and the Yuletide spirit. The letter arrived on the morning of the 16th. I was pushing a bit of breakfast into the Worcester face at the moment and feeling fairly well fortified with coffee and kippers. I decided to break the news to Jeeves without delay. Shakespeare says, if you're going to do a thing, you might as well pop right at it and get it over. The man would be disappointed, of course, and possibly even chagrined. But dash it all, a splash of disappointment here and there does a fellow good. Makes him realise that life is stern and life is earnest. Oh, Jeeves, I said, sir, we have here a communication from Lady Wickham. She's written inviting me to Skeldings for the festives. So you will see about the bunging the necessaries together. We repair thither on the 23rd. Plenty of white ties, Jeeves. Also a few hearty country suits for use in the daytime. We shall be there some little time, I expect. There was a pause. I could feel he was directing a frosty gaze at me, but I dug into the marmalade and refused to eat it. I thought I understood you to say, sir, that you proposed to visit Monte Carlo immediately after Christmas. I know, but that's all off. Plans changed. Very good, sir. At this point, the telephone bell rang, tiding over very nicely what had threatened to be an awkward moment. Jeeves unhooked the receiver. Yes, madam. Very good, madam. Here is Mr. Wooster. He handed me the instrument. Mrs. Spencer Gregson, sir. Yeah, you know, every now and then I can't help feeling that Jeeves is losing his grip. In his prime, it would have been with him the work of a moment to have told Aunt Agatha that I was not at home. I gave him one of those reproachful glances and took them sheep. Hello, I said. Yes, hello. Bertie speaking. Hello. Don't keep on saying hello, the old relative, in a customary curt manner. You're not a parrot. Sometimes I wish you were, because then you might have a little sense. Quite the wrong sort of tone to adopt towards a fellow in the early morning, of course, but what can one do? Bertie, Lady Wickham tells me she invited you to Skeldings for Christmas. Are you going? Rather. Well, mind you behave yourself. Lady Wickham is an old friend of mine. I was in no mood for this sort of thing over the telephone. Face to face, I'm not saying, but at the end of a wire, no. I shall naturally endeavour, Aunt Agatha, I replied stiffly, to conduct myself in the manner befitting an English gentleman paying a visit. What did you say? Speak up, I can't hear. I said, righto. Oh, well, mind you do, and there's another reason why I particularly wish you'd be as little of an imbecile as you can manage while at Skeldings. Sir Roderick Gossip will be there. What? Don't bellow like that, you nearly deafened me. Did you say Sir Roderick Glossop? I did. You don't mean Tuppy Glossop. I mean Sir Roderick Glossop, which is my reason for saying Sir Roderick Glossop. Now, Bertie, I want you to listen to me attentively. Are you there? Yes, still here? Well then, listen. I have at last succeeded, after incredible difficulty and the face of all evidence, in almost persuading Sir Roderick that you are not actually insane. He is prepared to suspend judgment until he has seen you once more. On your behaviour at Skeldings, therefore. But I had hung up the receiver, shaken, that's what I was, shaken to the core. Stop me if I've told you this before, but in case you don't know, let me just mention the facts in the matter of this Glossop. He was a formidable old bird with a bald head and outsized eyebrows. By profession, a loony doctor. How it happened, I couldn't tell you to this day, but I once got engaged to his daughter, Honoria, a ghastly dynamic exhibit who read Nietzsche and had a laugh like waves breaking on a stern, rock-bound coast. The fixture was scratched owing to events occurring which convinced the old boy that I was off my napper. And since then, he's always had my name at the top of his list of loonies I have lunched with. It seemed to me that even at Christmas time, with all the peace on earth and goodwill towards men, and that there was knocking about at that season, a reunion with this bloke was likely to be tough going. If I hadn't had more than one particularly good reason for wanting to go to Skeldings, I'd have called the whole thing off. Jeeves, I said it all of a twitter, do you know what? Sir Roderick Glossop is going to be at Lady Wickham's. Very good, sir. If you have finished breakfast, I will clear away. Cold and haughty, no sympathy, none of the rallying round spirit which one likes to see. As I anticipated, the information that we're not going to Monte Carlo had got it amongst him. There's a keen sporting streaky Jeeves, and I knew he'd been looking forward to a little flutter at the tables. We Woosters can wear the mask. I ignored his lack of decent feeling. Do so, Jeeves, I said proudly, and with all convenient speed. Relations continued pretty fairly strained all through the rest of the week. There was a frigid detachment in the way the man brought me my dollop of tea in the mornings. Going down to Skeldings in the car on the afternoon of the 23rd, he was aloof and reserved. And before dinner on the first night of my visit, he put the studs in my dress shirt in what I can only call a marked manner. The whole thing was extremely painful, and it seemed to me, as I lay in bed on the morning of the 24th, that the only step to take was to put the whole facts of the case before him and trust to his native good sense to effect an understanding. I was feeling considerably in the pig that morning. Everything had gone like a breeze. My hostess, Lady Wickham, was a beaky female, built far too closely on the lines of my Aunt Agatha for comfort. But she had seemed matey enough on my arrival. Her daughter Roberta welcomed me with a warmth which I'm bound to say had set the old heartstrings fluttering a bit. And Sir Roderick, in the brief moment we had together, appeared to let the Yuletide spirit soak into him to the most amazing extent. When he saw me, his mouth sort of flickered at one corner, which I took to be his idea of smiling. And he said, "Ha, young man." Not particularly chummily, but he said it, and my view was that it practically amounted to the lion lying down with the lamb. So all in all, life at this juncture seemed pretty well all to the mustard, and I decided to tell Jeeves exactly how matters stood. "Jeeves," I said as he appeared with the steaming tea, "Sir, touching on this business of our being here, I would like to say a few words of explanation. I consider that you have a right to the facts." "Sir, I'm afraid scratching that Monte Carlo trip has been a bit of a jar for you, Jeeves." "Not at all, sir." "Oh, yes, it has. The heart was set on wintering in the world's good old play spot, I know. I saw your eye light up when I said we were due for a visit there. You snorted a bit and your fingers twitched. I know, and now that there has been a change of programme, the iron has entered into your soul." "Not at all, sir." "Oh, yes, it has. I've seen it very well. Then what I wish to impress upon you, Jeeves, is that I have not been actuated by this matter by any mere idle whim. It was through no light and airy caprice that I accepted this invitation to Lady Wickham's. I've been angling for it for weeks, prompted by many considerations. In the first place, does one get the Yuletide spirit at a spot like Monte Carlo? Does one desire the Yuletide spirit, sir? Certainly one does. I'm all for it. Well, that's one thing. Now, here's another. It's imperative that I should come to Skeldings for Christmas, Jeeves, because I knew that young Tubby Glossop was going to be here. Sir Roderick Glossop, sir? His nephew. You may have observed hanging about the place a fellow with light hair and a Cheshire cat grin. That is Tuppy, and I've been anxious for some time to get to grips with him. I've seen it for that, have it in for that man of wrath. Listen to the facts, Jeeves, and tell me if I'm not justified in planning a hideous vengeance. I took a sip of tea, for the mere memory of my wrongs had shaken me. Despite the fact that young Tuppy is the nephew of Sir Roderick Glossop, at whose hands Jeeves, as you're aware, I have suffered much, I fraternised with him briefly, both at the Drones Club and elsewhere. I said to myself that a man is not to be blamed for his relatives, and I would hate to have my pals hold my Aunt Agatha, for instance, against me. Broad-minded Jeeves, I think. Extremely, sir. Well then, as I say, I sought this Tuppy out, Jeeves, and hobnobbed, and what do you think he did? I could not say, sir. It merely crossed my mind. Sorry. I will tell you. One night after dinner at the Drones, he betted me that I wouldn't swing myself across the swimming bath by the ropes and rings. I took him on and was buzzing along in great style, and I came to the last ring, and then I found out this fiend in human shape had looped it back against the rail, thus leaving me hanging in the void with no means of getting ashore to my home and loved ones. There was nothing for it but to drop into the water. He told me he had often caught fellows that way, and what I maintain, Jeeves, is that if I can't get back at him somewhere at Skeldings, with all the vast resources which a country house affords at my disposal, I am not the man I was. I see, sir. There was still something in his manner which told me that even now he lacked complete sympathy and understanding. So delicate though the subject was, I decided to put all my cards on the table. And now, Jeeves, we come to the most important reason why I had to spend Christmas at Skelding. Jeeves. I said, diving into the old cup once more for a moment and bringing myself out wreathed in blushes. The fact of the matter is, I'm in love. Indeed, sir? You've seen Miss Roberta Wickham? Yes, sir. Very well, then. There was a pause while I let it sink in. During your stay here, Jeeves, I said you would no doubt be throwing a good deal together with Miss Wickham's maid. On such occasions, pitch it strong. Sir? You know what I mean. Tell her I'm rather a good chap. Mention my hidden depths. These things go around. Dwell on the fact that I have a kind heart and was runner-up in the Scotch Handicap and the Drones this year. The boost is never wasted, Jeeves. Very good, sir, but what? Well, sir, I wish you wouldn't say well, sir, in that soupy tone of voice. I've had to speak of this before. The habit is one that is growing upon you. Check it. What's on your mind? I hardly like to take the liberty. Carry on, Jeeves. We're always glad to hear from you. Always. What I was about to remark, if you'll excuse me, sir, was that I would scarcely have thought Miss Wickham as suitable. Jeeves, I said coldly, if you have anything to say against that lady, it had better not be said in my presence. Very good, sir. Or anywhere else, for that matter. What is your kick against Miss Wickham? Oh, really, sir? Jeeves, I insist. This is a time for plain speaking. You have beefed about Miss Wickham. I wish to know why. It merely crossed my mind, sir, for the gentleman of your description, Miss Wickham is not a suitable mate. What do you mean by a gentleman of my description? Well, sir, Jeeves, I beg your pardon, sir, the expression escaped me inadvertently. I was about to say that I can only asseverate, only what? I can only say that you have invited my opinion, but I didn't. I was under the impression you desired to canvass my views on the matter, sir. Oh, well, let's have them anyway. Very good, sir. Then briefly, if I may say so, sir, though Miss Wickham is a charming young lady, there, Jeeves, there you speak of an imperial court. What eyes? Yes, sir. What hair? Very true, sir. And what... Pleasure-y, if that's the word I want. The exact word, sir. All right, then, carry on. I grant Miss Wickham the possession of all those desirable qualities, sir. Nevertheless, considered as a matrimonial prospect for a gentleman of your description, I cannot look upon her as suitable. In my opinion, Miss Wickham lacks seriousness, sir. She is too volatile and frivolous to qualify as Miss Wickham's husband. A gentleman would need to possess a commanding personality and considerable strength of character. Exactly. I would always hesitate to recommend a life's companion, a young lady with quite a vivid shade of red hair. Red hair, sir, in my opinion, is dangerous. I eyed the blighter squarely. Jeeves, I said, you're talking rot. Very good, sir. Absolute drivel. Very good, sir. Pure mashed potatoes. Very good, sir. Very good, sir. I mean, very good, Jeeves, and that would be all, I said. And I drank a modicum of tea with a good deal of water.
Can we get back to the Nazis?
I'm much more comfortable.
Time.
It isn't often I find myself able to prove Jeeves in the wrong, but by dinner time that night I was in the position to do so and did it without delay. Touching on that matter we were touching on, Jeeves, I said, coming in from the bath and tackling him as he studied the shirt, I should gladly give your careful attention for a moment. I warn you that what I'm about to say is going to make you look pretty silly. Indeed, sir? Yes, sir. And the links also? Sorry. Skipped a page. Yes, Jeeves. pretty dash silly. It's going to make you look. It may lead you to another, rather more careful in future about broadcasting these estimates of yours of people's characters. This morning, if I remember rightly, you say that Miss Wickham was volatile, frivolous and lacking in seriousness. Am I correct? Quite correct. Then what I have to tell you may cause you to alternate. I went for a walk with Miss Wickham this afternoon, and as we walked, I told her about what young Tuppy Glossop did to me in a swimming bath at the Drones. She hung upon my word, Jeeves, and was full of sympathy. Indeed, sir, dripping with it, and that's not all. Almost before I'd finished, she was suggesting the ripest, fruitiest, brainiest scheme for bringing young Tuppy's grey hairs in sorrow to the grave that anyone could possibly imagine. That is very gratifying, sir. Gratifying is the word. It appears that the girls' school where Miss Wickham was educated, Jeeves, is used to become necessary from time to time for the right-think element of the community to slip it across certain of the baser sort. Do you know what they did, Jeeves? No, sir. They took a long stick, Jeeves, and follow me closely here. They tied a darning needle to the end of it. Then at the dead of night, it appears they sneaked privily into the party of the second part's cubicle and shoved the needle through the bedclothes and punctured her hot water bottle. Girls are much subtler in these matters than boys, Jeeves. At my old school, one would occasionally heave a jug of water over another bloke during the night watches, but we never thought of effecting the same result in this particularly neat and scientific matter. Well, Jeeves, that was a scheme which Miss Wickham suggested I should work on young Tuppy, and that is a girl you call frivolous and lacking in seriousness. Any girl who can think up a wheeze like that is my dear of a helpmeet. I shall be glad, Jeeves, if by the time I come to bed tonight, you have waiting for me in this room a stout stick with a good sharp darning needle attached. Well, sir, I raised my hand. Jeeves, I said, not another word. Stick one and needle darning good, sharp one. Without fail in this room at 11:30 tonight. Very good, sir. Have you any idea where young Tuppy sleeps? I could ascertain, sir. Do so, Jeeves. In a few minutes he was back with the necessary information. Mr. Glossop is established in the milk room, sir. Where's that? The second door on the right floor below this, sir. Righto, Jeeves. Are the studs in my shirt? Yes, sir. And the links also? Yes, sir. Then push me into it. The more I thought about this enterprise, which a sense of duty and good citizenship had thrust upon me, the better it seemed to me. I'm not a vindictive man, but I felt as anyone would have felt in my place. If fellows like young Tuppy are allowed to get away with it, the whole fabric of society and civilization must inevitably crumble. The task which I set myself was one that involved hardship and discomfort, for it meant sitting up well into the small hours and then padding down a cold corridor. But I did not shrink from it. After all, there's a lot to be said for family tradition. We Woosters did our bit in the Crusades. It being Christmas Eve, it was that I had foreseen a good deal of revelry and whatnot. First, the village choir surged round and sang carols outside the front door, and then somebody suggested a dance, and after that we hung around, chatting of this and that, so it wasn't till past 1 that I got to my room. Allowing for everything, it didn't seem it was going to be safe to start my little expedition till 2:30 at the earliest, and I'm bound to say there was only the utmost resolution that kept me from snuggling into the sheets and calling it a day. I'm not much of a lad now for late hours. However, by 2:30, everything appeared to be quiet. I shook off the mist of sleep, grabbed the good old stick and needle and toddled off along the corridor, and presently, pausing outside the milk room, I turned the handle, found the door wasn't locked, and went in. I suppose a burglar, a real professional who works at a job at 6 nights a week all year round, gets so that finding himself standing in the door in somebody else's bedroom means absolutely nothing to him. For a bird like me who has had no previous experience, there's a lot to be said of washing the whole thing out and closing the door and popping back to bed again. It was only by summing up all the old bulldog courage of the Woosters and reminding myself that if I let this opportunity slip, another might never occur, that I managed to stick out what you might call the initial minute of the binge. Then the weakness paused and Bertram was himself again. At first, when I beat within, the room had seemed as black as a coal cellar, but after a bit things began to lighten. The curtains weren't quite drawn over the window, and I could see a trifle of the scenery here and there. The bed was opposite the window with the head against the wall, an end where the feet were jutting out towards where I stood, thus rendering it possible after one had sown the seed, so to speak, to make a quick getaway. There only remained now the rather tricky problem of locating the old hot water bottle. I mean to say, the only thing you can't do if you want to carry a job like this through with secrecy and dispatch is to stand at the end of a fellow's bed, jabbing the blankets at random with a darning needle before proceeding to do anything in the nature of definite steps. It's imperative that you locate the bot. I was a good deal cheered at this juncture to hear a fruity snore from the direction of the pillows. Reason told me that a bloke who could snore like that wasn't going to be awakened by a trifle. I edged forward and ran a hand in a gingerly sort of way over the coverlet. A moment later I had found the bulge. I steered the good old darning needle on it, gripped the stick and shoved, then pulled out the weapon. I sidled towards the door, and in another moment would have been outside, buzzing for home and the good night's rest, when suddenly there was a crash that sent my spine shooting up through the top of my head, and the contents of the bed sat up like a jack-in-the-box and said, "Who's that?" It just shows you your most careful strategic moves can be the very ones that dish your campaign. In order to facilitate the orderly retreat according to the plan, I'd left the door open, and the beastly thing had slammed like a bomb. Well, I wasn't giving much thought to the causes of this explosion, having other things to occupy my mind. What was disturbing me was the discovery that whoever else the bloke in the bed might be, he was not young Tubby. Tubby has one of those high, squeaky voices that sound like the tenor of a village choir failing to hit a high note. This was something in between the last trump and a tiger calling for breakfast after being on a diet for a day or two. It was a sort of nasty, rasping voice you hear shouting "for" when you're one of the slow foursomes on the links and holding up a couple of retired colonels. Among the qualities he lacked were kindness, suavity, and the sort of dove-like cooing note which makes a fellow feel he's found a friend. I did not linger. Swiftly off the mark, I dived for the door handle and was off and away. Banging the door behind me, I may be a chump in many ways, as my Aunt Agatha will freely attest, but I know when and when not to be among those present. And I was just about to do the stretch of corridor leading up to the stairs in a split second, under the record time for the course, when something brought me up with a sudden jerk. One moment I was all dash and fire and speed, and next an irresistible force had checked me in my stride and was holding me, straining at the leash, as it were. You know, sometimes it seems to me if fate were going out of its way to such an extent to snooze to you, you wonder if it's worthwhile continuing to struggle. The night being a trifle chillier than the dickens, I donned for this expedition a dressing gown. It was a tale of this infernal garment, called the door, and picked me at the 11th hour. The next moment the door had opened, light was streaming through, and the bloke with the voice had grabbed me by the arm. It was Sir Roderick Glossop. The next thing that happened was a bit of a lull in the proceedings. For about 3¼ seconds, or possibly more, we just stood there, drinking each other in, so to speak. The old boy had stood attached with a limpet-like grip to my elbow. If I hadn't been in a dressing gown and he in pink pyjamas with a blue stripe, and if he hadn't been glaring quite as much as if he was shortly going to commit a murder, the tableau would look rather like one of those advertisements you see in magazines, where the experienced elder is patting the young man's arm and saying to him, "My boy, if you subscribe to the Mutt Jeff Correspondence School of Oswego, Kansas, as I did, you may someday, like me, become third assistant vice president of the Schenectady Consolidated Nail and Eyebrow Tweezer Corporation." "You," said Sir Roderick finally, and in the connection I want to state that it's all rot to say you can't hiss a word that hasn't an S in it. The way he pushed out that "you" sounded like an angry cobra, and I'm betraying no secrets when I mention it did me no good whatsoever. By rights, I suppose at this point I've ought to have said something. The best I could manage there was a faint, soft bleating sound. Even on ordinary social occasions when meeting this bloke as man to man and with a clear conscience, I could never be completely at my ease, and now those eyebrows seemed to pierce me like a knife. "Come in here," he said, lugging me into the room. "We don't want to wake the whole house now," he said, depositing me on the carpet and closing the door and doing a bit of eyebrow work. "Kindly inform me, what is this latest manifestation of insanity?" It seemed to me that a light and cheery laugh might help the thing along, so I had a pop at one. "Don't gibber," said my genial host. and I'm bound to admit the light and cheery hadn't come out quite as I intended. I pulled myself together with a strong effort. "Awfully sorry about all of this," I said in a hearty sort of voice. "The fact is, I thought you were Tuppy. Kindly refrain from inflicting your idiotic slang on me. What do you mean by the adjective Tuppy? It isn't so much an adjective, don't you know, more of a noun, I should think, if you examine it squarely. What I mean to say is, I thought you were your nephew." "You thought I was my nephew? Why should I be my nephew?" What I'm driving at is, I thought this was his room. My nephew and I changed rooms. I have a great dislike for sleeping on an upper floor, and I'm nervous about fire. For the first time since this interview started, I braced up a trifle. The injustice of the whole thing stirred me to such an extent that for a moment I lost that sense of being the toad under the harrow which had been cramping my style up till now. I even went so far as to eye this pink pyjama patroon with a good deal of contempt and loathing, just because he had this craven fear of fire and this selfish preference for letting Tuppy be cooked instead of himself should the emergency occur. My nicely reasoned plans had gone up the spout. I gave him a look, and I think I may even have snorted a bit. "I should have thought that your manservant would have informed you," said Sir Roderick, "that we contemplated making this change. I met him short before luncheon, and I told him to it." I reeled. Yes, it's not too much to say that I reeled. This extraordinary statement had taken me amidships without any preparation, and it staggered me that Jeeves had been aware all along that this old crumb was been the occupant of the bed which I was proposing to prop with the darning needles, and let me rush upon my doom without a word of warning was almost beyond belief. You might say I was aghast. Yes, practically aghast. "You told Jeeves that you were going to sleep in his room," I gasped. "I did. I was aware that you and my nephew are on terms of intimacy, and I wished to spare myself the possibility of a visit from you. I confess it never occurred to me that such a visit was to be anticipated at 3 in the morning. What the devil do you mean?" He barked, suddenly hotting up. "By prowling about the house at this hour. And what is that thing in your hand?" I looked down and found I was still grasping a stick. I give you my honest word that what with the maelstrom of emotions into which his revelation about dreams had cast me, the discovery came as a complete silence. "This," I said. "Oh, yes. What do you mean, oh, yes? What is it?" "Well, it's a long story. We have the night before us. It's this way. I would ask you to picture me some weeks ago, perfectly peaceful and inoffensive after dinner at the Drones, smoking a thoughtful cigarette, and..." I broke off. The man wasn't listening. He was gurgling in a rapt sort of way at the end of the bed, from which there had now begun to drip from the carpet a series of drops. Good heavens! Thoughtful cigarette and chatting pleasantly of this and that. I broke off again. He had lifted the sheets and was gazing at the corpse of the hot water bottle. "Did you do this?" he said in a low, strangled sort of voice. Yes, and as a matter of fact, yes, I was going to tell you, and your aunt tried to say that you were not insane." "I'm not, absolutely not, and if you'll just let me explain, I will do nothing of the kind. It all began..." "Silence, writer." He did some deep breathing exercises through the nose. "My bed is drenched. The way it all began..." "Be quiet," he heaved somewhat for a while. "You wretched and miserable idiot," he said. "Kindly inform me which bedroom you are supposed to be occupying." "I'm on the floor above, the clock room." "Thank you, I will find it." He gave me the eyebrow. "I propose," he said, to pass the remainder of the night in your room, where I presume there is a bed in the condition to be slept in. You may bestow yourself as company as you can here. I wish you good night." He buzzed off and leaving me flat. Well, we Woosters are old campaigners. We can take the rough and the smooth, but to say I like the prospect now before me will be paltering with the truth. One glance at the bed told me that any idea of sleeping there was out. A goldfish could have done it, but not Bertram. After a bit of a look round, I decided the best chance of getting a sort of night's rest was to doss as where I could in the armchair. I pinched a couple of pillows off the bed, shoved the hearth rug over my knees and sat down and started counting sheep. But it wasn't any good. The old lemon was sizzling much too much to admit of anything in the night of slumber. This hideous revelation of the blackness of G's treachery kept coming back to me every time I nearly succeeded in dropping off. And what's more, it seemed to get colder and colder as the long night wore on. I was just wondering if I'd ever get sleeping in the world when the voice at my elbow said, "Good morning, sir." and I woke up with a jerk. I could have sworn I hadn't so much as dozed off for even a minute, but apparently I had, for the curtains were drawn back and daylight was coming in through the window, and there was Jeeves standing beside me with a cup of tea on a tray. Merry Christmas, sir. I reached out a feeble hand for the restoring brew. I swallowed a mouthful or two and felt a little better. I was aching in every limb and the dome felt like lead, but I was now able to think with a certain amount of clearness, and I fixed the man with a stony eye and prepared to let him have it. You think so, do you? I said. Much, let me tell you, depends on what you mean by the adjective merry. Is moreover, you suppose it's going to be merry for you? Correct that impression, Jeeves, I said, taking another half ounce of tea and speaking in a cold measured voice. I wish to ask you one question. Did you or did you not know that Sir Roderick Glossop was sleeping in this room last night? Yes, sir. You admit it? Yes, sir. And you didn't tell me? No, sir. I thought it would be more judicious not to do so. Jeeves, if you allow me to explain, sir. Explain. I was aware that my silence might lead to something in the nature of an embarrassing contretemps, sir. You thought that, did you? Yes, sir. You were a good guesser, I said, sucking down further by here. But it seemed to me, sir, whatever might occur was all for the best. I would have put in a crisp word or two here, but he carried on without giving me the opportunity. I thought that possibly on reflection, sir, your views being what they are, you would prefer your relations with Sir Roderick Glossop and his family to be distant rather than cordial. My views? What do you mean, my views? As regards a matrimonial alliance with Miss Honoria Glossop, sir. Something like an electric shot seemed to zip through me. The man had opened up a new line of thought. Suddenly I saw what he was driving at and realised all in a flash that I'd been wronging this faithful fellow. All the while supposing he'd been landing me in a suit, he'd really been steering me away from it. It was like those stories one used to read as a kid about the traveller going on a dark night and his dog grabs him by the leg and trousers and says, "Down, sir, what are you doing, Rover?" And the dog hangs on and he gets rather hot on the collar and curses a bit. The dog won't let him go, and then suddenly the moon shines through the clouds and he finds he's been standing on the edge of a precipice. And one more step would have, well, anyway, you get the idea, and that's what I'm driving at, is that much the same sort of thing had to be seen to be happening now. It's perfectly amazing how a fellow will let himself go off his guard and ignore the perils which surround him. I'll give him my honest word, it never struck me till this moment that my Aunt Agatha had been scheming to get me right with Sir Roderick, so that I should eventually be received back into the fold, if you see what I mean, and suddenly pushed off on Honoria. My God, Jeeves, I said, plain, precisely, sir. You think there was a risk? I do, sir, a very grave risk. A disturbing thought struck me. But Jeeves, on calm reflection, wasn't Sir Roderick. But Jeeves, on calm reflection, when Sir Roderick had gathered by now that my objective was young Tuppy, and that puncturing his hot water bottle is just one of the things that occur when the Yuletide spirit is aboard. One of those things that have to be looked and taken with the indulgent smile and the fatherly shake of the head to say young blood and all that sort of thing. What I mean is he realised I wasn't trying to snoot him, and then all the good work would have been wasted. No, sir, I fancy not. That might possibly have been Sir Roderick's mental reaction, but had it not been for the second incident. The second incident? During the night, sir, while Sir Roderick was occupying your bed, somebody entered the room, pierced his hot water bottle with some sharp instrument, and vanished in the darkness. I can make nothing of this. Do you think I walked in my sleep? No, sir, it was young Mr. Glossop who did it. I encountered him this morning, sir, shortly before I came here. He was in cheerful spirits and inquired of how you were feeling about the incident, not being aware that his victim had been Sir Roderick. But, Jeeves, what an amazing coincidence, sir. Why, young Tuppy getting exactly the same idea as I did, or rather as Miss Wickham did. You can't say that's not rummy, a miracle, I call it. Not altogether, sir. It appears we received a suggestion from the young lady. From Miss Wickham? Yes, sir. You mean to say that after you put me up to the scheme of puncturing Tuppy's hot water bottle, she went and tipped Tuppy off to puncturing mine? Precisely, sir. She is a young lady with a keen sense of humour, sir. I sat there, you might say, stunned when I thought how near I'd come to offering the heart and hand to a girl capable of double-crossing a strong man's honest love like that. I shivered. Are you cold, sir? No, Jeeves, just shuddering. The curtains, if I may take the liberty of saying so, sir, will perhaps Then colour to the view which I put forward yesterday. That Miss Wickham, though in many respects a charming lady, I raised a hand. Say no more, Jeeves, I replied. Love is dead. Very good, sir. I brooded for a while. You seen Sir Roderick then? Yes, sir. How did you see him? A trifle feverish. Feverish? A little emotional, sir. He expressed a strong desire to meet you, sir. What would you advise? If you were to slip out by the back entrance as soon as you're dressed, sir, it will be possible for you to make your way across the field without being observed and reach the village, where you could hire an automobile to take you to London. I'd bring on your effects later in your own car. But London, Jeeves? Is any man safe? My Aunt Agatha is in London. Yes, sir. Well then, he regarded me for a moment with a fathomless eye. I think the best plan, sir, would be for you to leave England, which is not pleasant at the time. For some little while. I would not take the duty of dictating your movements, sir, but as you already have accommodation engaged on the blue train for Monte Carlo for the day after tomorrow, but you cancelled the booking. No, sir. I thought you had. No, sir. I told you to. Yes, sir, it was remiss of me, but that slipped my mind. Oh, yes, sir. All right, Jeeves, Monte Carlo, then. Very good, sir. It's lucky as things have turned out you've got to cancel that booking. Very fortunate indeed, sir. If you will wait here, I will return to your room and procure a suit of clothes. And that's that.
For those just joining us online now, we've had a wonderful talk about tennis matches during the Battle of Stalingrad. Next month, badminton during the Battle for Berlin. So don't forget to join for those. Question at the back.
Yeah, does anyone get the Mutt and Jeff reference? My father had 2 chickens during the war, and one was called Mutt and the other Jeff, and it wasn't until this moment that I realised that...
It's death.
Yeah, but copywriting slang. Or blimey,
Can we have that again in English?
It's a copy of the region of London peopled entirely by criminals. They use to describe being deaf. I've got Mutton and Jeff.
Oh, okay.
I've got deaf.
So the reference to the company in Schenectady was something to do with copy rhyming slang.
Yes.
But that came from American cartoon characters called Mutt and Jeff.
Thank you for actually giving us
Well, there's another answer. There's many answers to these things. I do find it interesting. The hoops, the swimming pool. Yeah. There's a great book called Through Silk and Cyanide about British intelligence working with the Free French during World War II, and that happened to one of the British spies during that period. He was doing his exercise, I think, in the RAC club. Down in Clubland, and going across, and then his C essentially entered, and he dropped off and had to fall into the swimming pool he used to do it in his full suit before he'd go in the morning and then try and read through what was happening to the French intelligence networks being broken up. So that's a true story from British intelligence. Question behind the bar.
Yes, thank you for reading that. It's a really interesting narrative arc. I'm wondering if you have any insight into how the narrative arc might have been different had it happened. This particular Christmas happened in the wake of a successful Operation Sea Lion.
Well, we wouldn't have had much rubber supplies because then we'd have lost the Suez if we'd lost
I can answer questions on the Munich agreement. Jeeves and Woodhouse not so much. But...
Howard at the back.
For a noted designer of ladies' intimate apparel, might you be in a position to offer a critique of Sir Roderick Spode? Was he misunderstood, or was he a force for reason?
You are being filmed, I would remember. It's admissible in court.
Well, designer of women's... I'm not really with that. But...
Spode basically was discovered.
Oh, yes, sorry, yeah.
Unilever underwear, I think.
Yes, sorry, yes.
Ask me about Big being paid later, I'll tell you.
I think the British... Are we talking about the BEF? Yes, I think it's misunderstood. Yeah. Wait, what you want me to talk about?
No, the King supported it at one time, or the ex-King. And also, an interesting point about Spode in here, he was deathly afraid of being on the first floor because he was afraid of being trapped. Chairman Mao was absolutely identical. he would never sleep on the first floor of the building because he was terrified of a fire on the second and being trapped on the first, second, or third floor at the same time. So there's cross parallels there between dictatorship.
But isn't Spode who's worried?
Oh no, sorry, it's the chap in there.
Yeah.
If we're talking about
Doctor.
if we're talking about the BUF and Swordswood Mosley, I mean Swordswood Mosley was originally going to become like to be a Labour Prime Minister before he ever started the British Union of Fascists, and I don't.
So great, we never talked about Nazis.
But he asked me, and I said,
He's more fascist than Nazis.
if we take Spode as being Oswald Mosley, I think Oswald Mosley was a.
Misunderstood.
Well, he was an opportunist, and the only reason.
Swap sides. Like Churchill.
Well, I mean, the only reason they became anti-Semitic was because he wanted to get money from Hitler, from the Nazi Party, and Hitler didn't really take him very seriously, but that was the reason why he sort of went into anti-Semitism. He thought he could align with the Nazis. I'm not defending it. That's he was an opportunist more than anything else.
Whereas Spode is deliberately with
Spode
all of Lincolnshire will be given over to turnips. All of Warwickshire will make bicycles and things like that.
Northamptonshire umbrellas.
Exactly, I think so. Well, it's lovely also to have Santa Claus joining us tonight.
Yes.
Very busy time. Very busy time. So, thank you very much for our reading tonight. Please stay. Hope to see you on Saturday. We've got the candlelight coming up. We've got the moot coming up. Then we're back here again in January. So busy time. And on behalf of the Glorious Committee, please pay your dues. Thank you very much.